Hello, NWOBHM here today. It's the 16th of March 2024. Quick favour to ask, and that's if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe me to the channel. That'd be a big help and appreciated, so please do click that little button if you would. Today, some real proper, undiscovered is not really the right word, but one that went under the radar somewhat back in the new wave of British heavy metal days. The band is Amiga, and their soul album came out in the mid-80s, The Prophet. Now, I said that Amiga floated around for a few years back in the 80s, you know, when the new wave of British heavy metal took off. And as I said, this is their soul album. It's recently been reissued by High Roller Records in Germany and given it their sprinkling of dust, as they do with a lot of old NWOBHM stuff. You know, CD in a nice slipcase. Inside the jewel case is the CD with a booklet and a little mini poster of the cover artwork as well. Nice package. And Amiga were somewhat different to the vast majority of their contemporaries at the time, because The Prophet is quite very varied and ambitious in terms of its scope, style, composition and variation. There's so much going on here. Yes, of course it's heavy, of course it is, but it also manages to be dark, doomy, catchy and progressive as well. And on two tracks in particular, there's some of the finest guitar work that you'll hear anywhere. So Amiga back then, you know, followed the usual tactic to try and bag a record deal, record a demo. Theirs was known as the Alpha demo, hawking it around record companies. Eventually that persistence paid off. They did land a deal, with the result being The Prophet. And also on this reissue, as well as the album itself, we do have the Alpha demo tracks as well, right? So what about the music? Well, excellent stuff. The Dark is a brooding, doomy, dark, creepy song. It's a little bit unsettling as well. The vocals will send shivers down your spine. It's quite a compelling track all the same, with you know, excellent start, riffs aplenty, really attention grabber from the start. Shadows of the Past is not dissimilar. The title track comes next, and this is one of the two really epic tracks on the album. It is the title track. It's around about 9 minutes of what I'd describe as prog-tinged heaviness. Some remarkably excellent guitar work, atmospherics going on. I guess for a rough comparison, if in the 1980s Pink Floyd had gone heavy metal, then they might have sounded like The Prophet and what Amiga did on this track. You know, it's so well constructed, demonstrating that they really did have something of a unique selling point back then. It really is that good. Yesterday's Children comes next, brings in more variation, as the sort of like doomy proggy stuff gives way to a more sort of like straight ahead approach. So does Drive Me Crazy. That really is just straight ahead. It's got a really cheesy lyric, but it's quite catchy as well. And then we've got a barking mad cover of the Beatles' Day Tripper. I don't know where the inspiration to cover that came from, but it's so daft, it's good. But the best is most certainly reserved for last year, and that's on the album closer, called A Child. It's simply quite stunning. You know, and another 9 minutes or so, which builds in some atmospheric keys to begin with, and it slowly broods and builds away, raising the tension somewhat. You know it's going to take off and break out at some point, but you don't know when. And then when it does, about halfway through, bang, you know, we're off. Astounding extended guitar solo with everything going on underneath it. And as I mentioned earlier, it's one of the best you'll hear anywhere. It's so inventive and fluid. But it's not just the guitar that's spectacular on The Child, it's everything. Everything, you know. Just listen to it and it'll blow you away, I'm sure. So that's the album tracks. What about the Alpha demo? Well, we've got another, inspired, is that the right word? Cover. You know, they cover Summertime, which is probably one of the most covered songs in music history. Then we've got Heat of the Night, Abandon Hope, and Blood Sacrifice, which again show Amiga were able to switch between the doomy stuff and the straight ahead stuff. And we've also got an early version of The Child as well. So sadly though for the band, the album didn't attract the sales it surely deserved, and I would guess that was probably because, you know, the style that Amiga have on here, it's so wide and varied and different and nuanced for what was going on in the new wave of British heavy metal scene at the time. I think it was just too much for your typical NWOBHM era fan to get their head round. You know, it wasn't just straight ahead bludgeon referral, was it? There was so much more to it than that. And as a comparison, if you recall from back then, Diamond Head, when they released Canterbury around about this time, was it 82, 83, something like that, as their follow-up to Borrowed Time, it pretty much killed a career because Canterbury was so much more complicated and ambitious in its compositions than Borrowed Time was. And although in my opinion Canterbury is Diamond Head's best work, in my view it could be compared to Amiga's The Prophet in being too much ahead of its time, and one of those albums which does deserve the much cliched tag of Lost NWOBHM Classic. I think Amiga and The Prophet is that good and then some, because it's so different but so good. Anyway, that's Amiga and The Prophet. High Roller Records, I will put a link to them in the description below so you can go and check it out and get one. I also found it on Amazon, so I'll put a link to that as well. It'll be available in other places, I'm sure, but it's one that whether you're an old NWOBHM fan like I am, or you just like really excellent but slightly different classic heavy doomy proggy rock, all sorts going on it, then it's one to check out for sure. So that's Amiga and Prophet. Please subscribe to the channel before you go, because that would be marvellous. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and take care.